And today we're going to talk about tips to call for sale by owners and expireds with success. I just have a little funny for you before we get started. But we used to joke around that FSBOs, for sale by owner, we joked around that our team would have to buy a boat when we sold enough FSBOs, and we'd call it the Fizz boat. So if any of you want to borrow that idea, I thought that was a pretty good idea. All right, well, what we're going to do today is talk through how to call for sale by owners and expireds. We're going to start with expireds because the reality is most for sale by owners were an expired, which is how they came to be a for sale by owner. And I'd love to hear from you in the chat box real quick, or if you want to unmute yourself, how many of you currently call for sale by owners or expireds? Either one. Awesome. Now I can't see everybody, so maybe put a yes in the chat box just because there's a couple screens of people here. Awesome. It looks like quite a few of you. How many of you are here? Type in new if you are like, I've never called them, and that's why I'm here, is I want to start calling them. Good. I see quite a few of you that say new. So you're in the right place. So let's go ahead and jump in because we have a lot to cover in the next 30 minutes. Before I start teaching, let me explain a little bit of who I am and why I'm teaching this topic. But I have been in sales since 2006, and I started training sales in 2008. And then in 2013, got into real estate. My first year in real estate, I sold 85 homes. And on average, I set 20 appointments a month just from FSBO and expireds. So I was closer to 30 to 40 appointments a month, but 20-ish of them solely came from expireds and FSBOs. And the truth is, guys, when I started calling expireds and for sale by owners, I got physically ill. My stomach would hurt. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? You go to make a new call and you literally have that stomach drop feeling. Yeah, that was me. So I just want to encourage you that one thing that bothers me that people say to me is, oh, you just make it look so easy. And what I want people to know is, no, if we sat beside each other on day one and we both were on our day one, you would see how much work and effort went into this and how much literally stomach ache went into becoming good at for sale by owners and expireds. So just know that's normal. And the goal is to just work through it. And I would say after about 6 weeks or so of calling expireds and for sale by owners, they actually became my favorite lead source. And they became, oh, it's close to the end of the day and I need another appointment. Let me just call a for sale by owner expired. And that's the relationship I came to have with these leads. So I just want to encourage you, if you're in the spot where I was when I was new, you are in good company, and I will guide you through how to get comfortable with these today. Also, I apologize in advance. I'm on like day 12 of being sick. I'm definitely better, but I might cough on this webinar. Got a cough drop going on, but I apologize in advance. It's probably going to happen. All right, as we go today, real quick, if you look at point number 3, you are going to get a copy of this recording, and you might hear a script or a dialogue that you want to go back and listen to again. As you take notes, do take notes. I would encourage you, put a little note of at 5 minutes and 8 seconds in, I want to go back and listen to that again, and that will help you later get more out of this recording. All right, so we're going to start with expireds again, because most of them are for sale by owners usually are former expireds. And so, so sorry guys, I warned you. Okay, so the thing that you want to remember about an expired is they are an interested person. This is someone that had someone made an offer, an appropriate offer on their house, they would have sold it before it expires. And so I think a lot of times when we call expireds, you hear things like, oh, I'm not interested anymore. Oh, I'm just going to wait. And what I want you to remember is that's usually a reaction. So in psychology, they call that refraction. And who cares what the psychology term is, right? But refraction is when you're actually really disappointed about something and you make it like it's no big deal. Have any of you ever done that? I think we probably all have. The analogy that I use a lot when talking about this with agents, if you've heard this analogy before, you're going to hear it again. But think of back at Thanksgiving dinner, and some of you might have a teenager niece, okay? If you don't, or maybe a child who is in their teens, but I want you to picture a teenage girl for just a moment. And I want you to picture that she just sat down at the Thanksgiving table And she is telling you, I just broke up with my boyfriend. And can you imagine if in that exact moment you look at her and say, man, I'm so sorry to hear you broke up with your boyfriend. When do you want to get back together with him? What do you think she would say if you immediately went into, well, when do you want to get back together with him? What do you think the reaction would be? Yeah, Leanne, I can't hear you, but your facial expressions are awesome.
She'll be like, no.
Yeah. What do you mean? I just told you I broke up with the guy. Why are you asking when I would get back together with him? Yet how many times have we heard, hey, when you call expireds, the first thing you should ask them is, when are they going to relist? But they just told you, I'm going to wait. I'm not interested anymore. Do you see how there's that emotional disconnect in the conversation a bit? So let's go back to the analogy with the teenage girl. And imagine if instead of saying, when are you going to get back together with him, you instead said, hey, I'm curious. When you first started dating him, and I'm so sorry y'all just broke up, but when you first started dating him, I'm just curious, what even attracted you to the guy? Like, what was it about him? If she starts telling you all about his qualities, and he's funny, and he was kind, and he was chivalrous, and man, I just love his mom. His mom is so great. Can you all just imagine that pretty soon she's going to be crying in the mashed potatoes at the Thanksgiving table, right? Because she just reminded herself of all the reasons that she loved him in the first place. Now, if you said, hey, so what do you think about getting back together with him? What kind of response you would get now? And again, I'm just watching Leanne's facial expressions. If you can't see Leanne, you're missing out. But yeah, she's probably, okay, yes, I want to get back together with him, right? Because she just reminded herself of all of the emotional reasons why she wanted to in the first place. That is the mindset to have when you call expireds. When you call expireds, you are going to likely hear things like, back to the teenager analogy, oh, he was too tall, and I mean, it's fine. I mean, his mom, I loved her, but she's kind of annoying. So, I mean, it's fine that we broke up. That's what you're going to hear when you call expireds. So they're going to say things like, oh, it's the market. I'm just going to wait. Oh yeah, I'm just going to wait a couple months. Or, oh yeah, I'm no longer interested. And remember, this is an expired. This isn't a withdrawn, which they can be good to call too, but we're not training on that today. But this is an expired. That means they were listed until it ran out of time. So you've got to look past what they're telling you out of the gate. So again, if they sound discouraged, defeated, or disinterested, you're not going to ignore that. You can kind of empathize with them for just a moment. So you might say something like, man, yeah, I'm really sorry to hear your house didn't sell. That must be tough. That could be an appropriate response. But don't, okay, I'll call you later, right? You're going to miss a big opportunity. So how do you open this call then to take them emotionally back to the day that they originally listed? How do you do that? So if you look at the screen here, we're going to put up actually a call opener that you can use on your calls. Now, I encourage you, do not take a picture of the screen. You will remember more from this call today if you take notes. So when I put up the steps to the call opener, I encourage you to write them down real quick. And that way it'll help you remember this information a lot better. So the way you open a call is you're going to, number one, say your name and then their name, and then thank you for taking my call. So that might sound like, hey, Claudia, it's Anna calling from the Hario Group, Keller Williams. Hey, thank you so much for taking my call today. Now, let me ask y'all, why do you think we say, thank you for taking my call? What is the psychology there?
Gratitude.
What's that? Oh, gratitude. Why does that matter though? Why do we need to bother with gratitude in the first 3 seconds?
We're setting ourselves apart and we're not coming across too aggressive.
Yes, you got it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, and I see that in the chat box, they're less likely to hang up. If I said to you all, and I genuinely mean this, by the way, thank you for having your cameras on. It's very energizing to see your faces. It would feel kind of weird to turn your camera off, right? So in the same way, if I'm calling an expired, I'm like, hey, thank you so much for taking my call. It is going to be harder for them psychologically to now hang up on me. And it does set us apart. Most agents are not expressing gratitude. Then you're going to say, I'm calling because I see your home came off the market. Do not say expired. One night over dinner, I told my family I called expireds today, and they literally thought that I had called dead people. I mean, they knew that I hadn't, but they were like, that's what it sounds like you're saying. So that is not a term we use outside of our office, right? It's very much an internal real estate term. So instead you're going to say, hey, Claudia, I see that your home came off the market. Is that correct? Now, if you've ever taken a class with me, you know I'm not a fan of closed questions early on in the call. Closed meaning yes or no. However, I do want to confirm that they are actually off the market. That is important to actually be sure. So I am going to ask that. Now, what I have found in my experience calling expireds, and I've called hundreds, if not thousands of expireds, is some of them will say it is, which what do you know already if you get that response?
Their agent wasn't communicating with them.
Yeah, not communicating.
Right. Their agent was not communicating. So that already tells me to set myself apart even more, be a really good communicator, because that's gonna, obviously that wasn't happening. Another thing you might hear, and this isn't in the slides, so just jot down a note. I also would hear, well, why are you calling me now? Why didn't you call me when my house was listed? Anybody else get that one? You can tell I've called him before, right? I've heard it all, guys. I've heard it all. So where were you when my house was listed? The best way to overcome that is simply to explain why you didn't call, which is, hey, Claudia, I'm actually not allowed to call you when your home is listed with another agent. So you got to say, you know what they most often say to that? Oh, why didn't anybody else explain that to me today? I've had like 12 calls. You're the first person who explained that to me. And immediately now it's like you're on the same side of the table now. The other thing you might hear is, oh, you're the 12th person that's called me today. And my favorite response for that is, oh man, my lucky number's 13. And then I just keep going, Now, I don't know how you have your Zoom set up, if you can see each other, but I can see about 20 of you. And I would say at least half of you smiled when I said, oh man, my lucky number's 13. Well, if the lead is upset, they may not smile. Some of them will kind of chuckle with you. But even if they don't, I find it does disarm them. But the trick is to say it and then keep going. When there's a silence, somebody's going to fill it, and they might fill it with another objection. So what that would sound like is, oh man, my lucky number's 13. Anyway, the reason I'm calling you is because, and you just got to keep going. Okay. So let's go back to the call opener. Those are different ways of overcoming what you might get. And then the last thing you're going to do, and this is where we're emotionally taking them back to the day they listed, is, hey, I'm curious, what made you want to sell your home back when you originally listed? And I find in asking that question, I started skipping over the, well, we're not going to move anymore. I would get that sometimes, yes. But because the question is, when you originally listed, what made you want to, along those lines, everybody has an answer for that because they were motivated enough to actually list their house. Now, if someone says, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore, I changed my mind, because sometimes they'll just say that. What I like to do is say, well, I totally hear you. I'm assuming, however, that not selling is plan B. Tell me a little bit about plan A. And the thing I want you to hear is, do not move on until you get motivation. Motivation is what overcomes objections. And if you do not have motivation, good luck overcoming objections. Now, you might call an expired that actually is like the ideal expired, and they'll move forward with you and you don't know their motivation. And that can fool us into thinking, oh, I don't need to know their motivation. But have you ever heard that phrase, you're losing so slowly that you think you're winning? That is a scary sentence. When I first heard it, I was like, what? What does that even mean? You're losing so slowly you think you're winning? But what that means is maybe you're using a method. I've done this before. I'm using a method that's okay. And because it works enough, I think that it works really well. Not realizing I could have set 3 appointments this morning and I set 1 because I wasn't using the best method. So that's what they mean when they say you're losing so slowly that you think you're winning. And so that's why if we don't have motivation, you might still set some appointments, but there's going to be a lot of people that you could have set an appointment with that did not move forward with you because you did not know what their motivation was. And motivation overcomes objections. So again, from the top, hey, Jameson, it's Anna calling from the Hario Group, Keller Williams. Thank you so much for taking my call today. I really appreciate it. I'm calling because I saw your home just came off the market. Is that correct? Okay, great. We've helped a lot of people in your shoes. Now, I'm curious, what made you want to sell your home back when you originally listed? Once you do that, you are then going to continue on to motivation and go 3 deep. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. Again, on the screen, I put up some options for what do you do if they're like, well, we wanted to downsize, but we've changed our mind. So one thing you could do is, I hear you. I'm curious though, what made you want to list back then? So if you notice, you're basically asking the same question again. You're not changing it. You're just acknowledging, I hear you. I'm curious though, what made you want to sell back when you originally listed? So one option is just restate the same question basically. Another thing you can do is if they're like, hey, I think it's the market or whatever, you could say, hey, I understand that perspective. I'm curious though, for whenever you're ready, what made you want to sell in the first place? And I found a lot of people, if I just was like, yeah, I totally get it. I'm curious though, obviously you wanted to sell. I mean, for whenever you decide to do this, what was making you want to move? And now it's kind of like we're just shooting the breeze, talking through scenarios, right? And then you could also say, hey, I'm assuming waiting is plan B. What was plan A? And if we could still make plan A happen for you, would you want to do that? Would you want to explore that? Here's how you transition. Now, this is a 30-minute webinar. I can't go over every possible thing that's going to happen on an expired call, but here's the most important thing to know. Get that motivation first. As they talk about it, you can then transition into the selling conversation. So I might look at Nakia and say, hey, I just heard you talk about wanting to downsize and being closer to your family and also wanting to retire early, which you can do. I'm all choked up about your motivation, Nakia. But you want to do all of these things. I'm just curious if we could still make that happen for you, wouldn't that be worth exploring? And I almost view it as if we're sitting on the same side of the table and I'm kind of just coming over to him like, hey, wouldn't this be worth at least talking about? But can you see how that's really hard to do if you don't know their motivation? Because then it's all about us and how we can sell their house. It's not about them and what they actually want. Once you have that motivation, so sorry, guys. Once you have that motivation, then you're basically going to qualify them the same way you would any other seller. If you've taken Mega Lead Conversion with me, I give you a seller sheet in session 1. That's what I would use here. Okay. Then as needed, share relevant data just to help build some belief. So like if I'm talking to Jameson and he's like, yeah, I mean, I do really want to sell, but I'm just discouraged. I just don't think I can right now. Here's a true story, actual true story that I would share. I'm going to say, hey, Jameson, I hear you. I do want you to know we actually helped someone else whose house came off the market. We raised the price and we sold it in 24 hours. So we know how to help. Now, I'm not going to list your house if I don't think I can actually sell it, but wouldn't it be worth at least talking about? And that typically is how we would then get into that conversation. Some additional questions good for these expired sellers is to ask them, how many showings did you have? Anybody know the ratio? If you've had X amount of showings and no offers, it's overpriced. Anybody know?
10.
10. Yep. Now I'm not going to tell them that, but I'm listening to that in the actual listing appointment. You could share that, but I'm just trying to figure out why didn't this house sell? In my experience, selling homes is typically expireds can sell. They just need better marketing, better pictures, better strategy, right? We took on a lot of expireds that actually sold. Sometimes we lowered the price, but the person just wanted the house to sell. So they were okay with that, even if not thrilled. Sometimes people were unreasonable. And that's why we ask these questions. I'm trying to figure out, are they unreasonable or what's the deal here? So I'm just going to ask, how many showings did you have? What kind of feedback and how many offers did you get? I'm not going to comment on any of that. I'm just gathering, is this person somebody I can actually help? And then what do you think caused your house not to sell? Best you can tell. And a lot of times they'll have an idea. Sometimes it's comical, this conversation. All right. So that's expired. So now let's talk about for sale by owners. It's going to be very similar. Let me take down the screen real quick. So I really want you to hear what I'm saying here. The first thing we want to ask everybody about is always motivation, which, by the way, this is true for any lead source. This could be sign calls, internet leads, sphere. Definitely true for expireds, definitely true for sale by owners. What I know from calling for sale by owners is that if I called them and I was like, hey, Michelle, I see you have your house for sale by owner. Congratulations. What has you thinking about moving? For sale by owners, we're like, why do you need to know? Why are you asking me that question? So I learned a little backdoor way to get into motivation with a for sale by owner. So what you're going to do is say, hey, tell me, hey, this is me calling you. I see you have a house for sale. I have, and be honest with your number, I have 10 active buyers right now, and I'm curious if your house fits their needs. Tell me about your house. Now that doesn't sound motivation focused, right? However, here's the trick. Tell me about your house. And what I'm wanting to do is get them to tell me all the selling points of the house, which are all the positives, so that I can then easily say, man, it sounds like a great house. Why are you selling? And now it just sounds like a casual conversation, right? So it's a lot easier. So let me go ahead and put that back up on the screen for you. So hello, Leanne, this is Anna from the Haro Group. Thank you so much for taking my call. I'm calling because we're working with 12 active buyers. So you have a house for sale. I'd love to see if it's a good fit. Tell me about your home. And then again, what makes you want to move? Now, what some of them do is they'll say, well, the ad's online. Can't you just look at the ad? I see some of you nodding your heads, so I know that you must also call for sale by owners. And just a side note, that always makes me chuckle because it's like, it's like by talking to me, you're talking to 12 buyers. Why are you being snarky? That's what runs through my head. I don't say it out loud, but I'm like, this doesn't make sense why you're being so rude. But what I like to say then is you kind of have to match that energy a little bit, but you're going to do it politely, of course. So I might say, hey, Jenny, I see your ad online. There's also 300 other homes listed in this general area that fit your basic description. So if I was at coffee and I wanted to convince my buyer that your house was the house to buy, what would I tell them? And that works. I want to say it works 100% of the time. I'm sure someone didn't answer me at one point, but it works that good that I'm tempted to say it's 100%. So again, I see your ad. If I had to convince somebody to buy your house over all of the others, what would I tell them? And then they'll tell you the good stuff. I just renovated. We have good trees and nice neighbors. And now you're going to say, wow, sounds like a great place. What makes you want to move? Then what you're going to do is you are going to dig into that motivation and then let them know, I'm going to tell our buyers, or if you're an inside sales agent or a listing agent, you might say, I'm going to tell our buyer agents about this home. Yet I have to ask you, usually you can make more money listing it with an agent. What made you decide to do for sale by owner? And that gets us into the conversation about how I can make them more money. And by the way, just a side note, they usually make 12% more listing with an agent than they do on their own. And so they really do need you. They really, really do. They need you. All right. So the main thing I want you to remember with both of these lead sources is to make sure that you dig at least 3 deep. And what I mean by that, I didn't really explain that yet. Whatever they tell you, if they say I want to downsize, ask 3 additional questions off of that. So what would downsizing do for you? And maybe they say save money. Okay, what would saving money, how would that impact you? And basically you're going to take whatever they tell you and you're going to dig into that client motivation. Okay. I see a question. What do we do for voicemail? I would just say, hey, I have a certain amount of buyers. I'd love to hear more about your home. Call me back today by 5. The key to a good voicemail is give them a time to call you back by. All right. All right. I'll look at more questions in just a moment. I know we're close to time, so I want to share with you where can you find more like this. And you've probably seen at the bottom of every screen, megaleadconversion.com. That is a class I teach. And here's a little bit of what we cover. It's a 6-month program. And what we did is we sat down and thought through what is every micro piece of a conversation that people need to be good at in order to set more appointments and make more money. Everything from how do you open a call so they don't hang up on you? What do you do if they say, I'm busy, call me later? Things like how we go deeper into expireds and FSBOs than we had time for today. We go through how to set an appointment to make sure it actually shows up. We go through how to get the signature. People using our methods are reporting a 90 to 95% signature ratio. So that means, think about this for just a moment. I want all of you to think of all the appointments you went on in the past month to 2 weeks, okay? Imagine that 90 to 95% of them actually hired you. How many of you would like that? Yeah, typical that I hear is 40%. Average is actually 80. People that have not yet had training hang out around 40%. So if you feel like you don't have enough clients, a lot of people are tempted to say, well, I just need to call more people. Well, maybe you do, but maybe you just need to have better skill. Why work harder if you can work smarter, right? Maybe we just need to get better at our dialogues. And again, it might be true that we need to call more people, but it might also be true we just need to be better on the phone. So let me show you real quick where you can get into that class. It starts in 4 weeks. What you do is you go to megaleadconversion.com. I'll put the link into the chat box real quick. And megaleadconversion.com. And when you go there, it'll bring you to this screen. You'll see a video of me explaining a bit more about how the program works. Here's the breakdown. It's $199 a month for 6 months. You can have 2 people from your team join. So if 2 agents want to join from the same team, you just have to be within the same team. By the way, this program used to be $800 a month. Did anybody take it back in the day when it was $800 a month? During COVID, we got it down to $199, and then we've just kept it there. So this did used to be $800 a month. And then you can see frequently asked questions, what to expect. And it's for any buyer, listing, or inside sales agent. Basically, if you're in sales, that's who it's for, sales. All right, so if you want to take that class, I encourage you sign up today. I'm just going to tell you why. It creates a lot of chaos when everybody signs up in the last 12 hours, which is what usually happens. So if you would do me a favor, if you already know that you plan to take the class, go ahead and sign up today. And that'll help us get your portal all set up for you and good to go for February 7th. All right, what questions do you guys have about today? Not another topic, just because we got to be careful with our time. So it needs to be about expireds, for sale by owners, or about the class Mega Lead Conversion. What questions do you guys have? All right, so yes, we will send out the recording. I see some of you actually answered questions of other people, so thank you. Oh, Kathleen, what do you do if they say, why didn't you bring a buyer when it was listed? If they say that, what I like to do is basically, I would say, you know, there might be someone on our team that did, but I'm here to work for you as the seller. And so the seller, you actually don't want us bringing the buyers because you want us to represent you. So I'm here calling to represent you. And maybe someone else from our team or our office. If you're a single agent, you could say someone from our office may have things like that. All right, Shannon said, will there be office hours Q&A? Yeah, Shannon, in the class, at the end of every class, there's about 10 minutes for questions, more than we have today, because this is a 30-minute, they're hour-long webinars. And you can also email me if you, for whatever reason, we don't get it at the end of class, you can always email me. And yes, you can find script partners. In fact, just this past week, people were chatting in the chat box saying, I need a script partner. And I saw about 4 people doing that. So yeah, you can find a script partner. And then we do record every session. It's great that when you're live, because then you can ask those questions and I love seeing you. But we also record because we understand you might be with a client or you might be out sick or traveling. So we do record every session. Shay, does the class include any strategies? So we talk not specifically about mailers, but we talk about email campaigns, e-alerts. We talk through what is a good follow-up strategy. So how many times should you be calling a new lead? How often? With what frequency? We talk through what do you say on voicemails? So we teach a voicemail strategy. So we definitely go over follow-up. We talk about organizing the database. We talk about tracking. We give you 4 tracking systems. So we really give you every dialogue you need from hello all the way through to a signed agreement, as well as all the systems behind all of that. All right, let me see what else here. If they don't want, yeah, Nikia, thank you for responding. This question is a great reason to take the class. So Victoria, I see your question about what do you do if they don't want to pay you a commission? There's not a 1-line response. There's actually a 4-step objection process. That it's true, Nikia is right. It's hard to answer that in the time that we have. But basically you're going to ask questions about why they don't want to pay you commission. I usually have more energy on the calls, by the way, when I'm not feeling a little under the weather. And they usually say they want to make the most amount of money. So then you address how you can make them the most amount. But Victoria, it's a 4-step process to uncover the objection. And that we do teach that in the class. We actually have 2 classes just on objections. All right, I'm just looking for. Crystal says, how many times did you call back? I would call back 6 times. And again, we give you a call strategy at the class mega lead conversion. That's very detailed. So what are you saying each of those 6 times? What is the strategy? What's the voicemail? What's the email? What's the text? But 6 times is the short answer. Joanne, thank you for your comment in there. I appreciate it. All right. I see the question, do you use 10 days of pain? I don't call it that. We have the 6-day strategy and we teach that in the program. Do you have problems with people not answering your phone calls and getting a lot of voicemails? Yes, and with the voicemail strategy that we teach you, usually by the 6th call, 90% of them call you back or they pick up. But there's a method to how often you call, what you're saying on the voicemail. A lot of people have never had a voicemail training, and we teach you how to do voicemails effectively. And with that, you usually get a 90% contact rate. What I find is a lot of people just don't call enough. And then they and I get it, because this was me before someone taught me. I don't know what to say when I do call, which is actually why we don't call enough sometimes, because we're like, I don't know what to say. I've already called them a whole bunch. Carol said, do you send any info to the or do you send any info to the seller before calling? No, not usually. I save that for people I've actually talked to. You can. What I will say is a lot of, we had an agent on our team who would send postcards. They're cheaper postage. And he would get a lot of callbacks from postcards, handwritten postcards. By the way, I had someone once, an expired, because I see, I don't leave a voicemail. I had an expired call me once. It was like 3 months after I had been calling her and I left her 5 voicemails. She called me and said, you've got the list. She literally said, you've got the listing. Just come get it. I got your voicemails. You're the only agent who called me. I guarantee you, I'm not the only agent who called an expired. She was in our luxury market. I'm not the only agent who called her. I think I'm the only agent who left her voicemails. So when she was ready, she called me and I literally got the listing. Oh, I see the question. What time is the class? This is kind of funny because I realize I teach it, but let me go double check real quick. So the class will be running at 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern time, starting on February 7th. So 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern time, starting on February 7th. Again, we record every session. So if for whatever reason that doesn't work with your schedule, just know that we do record. Lisa, what I can teach you is the first 25 minutes of the class. I gave lots and lots of dialogues. William, is there any discount if paid in full? Miles, that might be a question for Miles. I'm not aware of one because we already cut it from 800 down to 199. So I've actually never had that question. So that's a really good question. All right. Oh, the class is on Wednesdays. Joanne, thank you for answering all my questions. And then Christina said, my city is huge. Do you call everywhere or just where you want to work? That's a great question. So to answer that question, I think know what's going on in your market. This will be the last question I answer real quick. And then Lisa, I see your follow-up question. I'll get that to you. So Christina, when business was booming and we were struggling to have enough appointment spots, I kind of honed in on the area that I called and the price point I called. Now in today's market, we need listings. We'll go an hour out because we need listings. And so I think there's no really right or wrong. It's just know what your preference is and what your capacity is. And I think be willing to go further or call people maybe you wouldn't normally call because of the market. And then, yeah, Lisa, your question, if you did miss some of the teaching, because we did about 25 minutes of scripts and dialogues, we will email this out to everyone who registered. So you'll get a copy of this probably by tomorrow. Okay, we are over time, but I'm going to answer the last few just because I want to. I want to help you. Oh, wait a minute. I think I got most. I think you guys are answering for me. Yeah, a lot of you guys are. Oh, Shannon, what's the weekly commitment to do practice and homework? That's actually totally up to you. So I teach and I will always give you recommended action items. The minimum would be I recommend you practice 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week. But there's not homework that you're turning into me. Okay. So the real deal is you could show up and just watch the hour recording and that's it. But to get the most out of the program, I would watch the recording and then practice whatever I taught you for 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week at a minimum. And then at the end of every class, I'll give you recommended action items. Oh, where do you go to sign up? Go to megaleadconversion.com. And actually, I'll put the sign up here. I'll show you. Thank you guys for bearing with me today. I'll put this into the chat box. This is the actual contract right there. And a lot of people say, what days are the classes? And you can see the schedule here. So it's 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern. Here's all the days. We meet 3 days a month. That way, if there's a week off every month so that if you miss it or you get behind, you're not overwhelmed. Have you ever gotten behind and then it's like, why even bother? I'm so far behind. So we do 3 weeks a month. And additionally, I find that people remember it better when we did 3 weeks versus 4. People reported enjoying it better. So megaleadconversion.com starts February 7th. That sounds far away. That's not even a whole month away. So if you would go ahead and register today, that'll help us get your portal set up and all your materials ready versus a last minute rush. So that would be helpful. Oh, Leslie, can you share again if you're on a team and members participate? So before I answer you, before 2020, this program was $800 a month for one person, and that was it. And Jenny knows all about that. Now this program is $199 a month for 2 people within the same team. You have to be within the same team. Truthfully, a lot of people sign up as a single individual and they get tons of value out of it. You don't need 2 people for that. But if you have like a buyer agent and an inside sales agent or 2 buyer agents or 2 listing agents on a team that want to take it, 2 people per team. So we had a team once that had 8 people that wanted to take it. They only had to sign up 4. Okay. Versus 8. All right. Stephanie, in the recording, you will not get the slides. They're copyright protected, but you'll get the recording that has all the slides in them. So you can definitely watch again. All right. Any other questions about the class specifically? And then I'm going to have to hop off. Anybody else? Thank you guys for being here. I know you didn't have to be, and a ton of you are still here and we're 10 minutes over. There's still 130 some of you. So thanks for hanging out with me. All right. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Good seeing you. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, where we've had a deluge of rain. So I'm going to go look at our waterfall downtown because I'm a little obsessed with waterfalls. I have a feeling it's going to be crazy because we have flooding going on. I'm that person. All right, guys. Oh, hey, from South Africa. Good to see you. That's fun. Go to bed. It's like 11 o'clock at night for you. All right, guys. Have a
Anna.
good rest of your night.
Anna,
Yes.
I just want to tell you, I'm Blanca Johnson from the Market Center 110. Jordan Sibley, I mean, she loves you. She speaks
Oh.
so highly about you every time that she can and share your video. So this is
Aw.
also what I'm here because, I mean, your name, we hear it every time. So
Oh, well,
she
thank
is a
you.
fan of yours.
Thank you for telling me that. That's so encouraging. All right, so I have to tell you something since you just shared that. I'm gonna be a little vulnerable. So if you don't like that, you might want to hop off the line, okay? But I actually was just talking to my coach maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I said, I love teaching webinars and I'm so energized. And then as soon as I close the screen, I'm a little like, ugh. And I said, I think I missed that interaction after class because I don't really know how it's impacting people. Like, I like to know if it's helping people. And I don't ever really hear feedback now that we do a lot of stuff on Zoom. And I still love it because it's access, right? A lot of people can take a class they couldn't otherwise get. So we had just said, maybe I should ask for feedback. And I had prayed for encouragement. I was like, I need some encouragement that this is making a difference. I know that it is, but you just very rarely hear it because you close the Zoom screen and then everybody disappears. So thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate it. All right, guys. I told you vulnerable. So if that made you uncomfortable, it's your fault. I warned you. All right. Those of you in South Africa, go to bed. And then I will see the rest of you hopefully in class on February 7th. And I'll see you then. Have a great one, everybody.